I've got this new artist tape as well to tape down when you're doing watercolor or mixed media pad and you're painting on there. And it's very hard to get off with my nails, so I've got an X-Acto knife to help me get that off. But this is supposed to be made for art paper, so when you lift it, you don't have to worry about any ripping or tearing of your page. So again, this is my first time trying this out tonight. We're trying out some new watercolor supplies tonight. And I'm just going to tape this down. Smooth that out, and that way it gives you a nice crisp edge on here. So let me know in the comments how many of you have done watercolor before, or if you're new to it. Leslie asked, is washi tape okay to use? I have never used that, Leslie. I would say no, but maybe it is. Although Casey has used it in some of her watercolor lettering classes, so maybe it is. I would say test it on your paper and on a scrap paper and see if it lifts anything up or if anything seeps underneath it. That would be the only thing. So just a couple things with watercolor to keep in mind before we get started. You can layer them. So there's a couple different techniques. Let me use my mixed media pad here to kind of show you. So I'm just going to go into some red right here. And we're just putting down, same way we did it last night, just a loose round-like shape, nothing too perfect. Now, this is still wet right now, right? So I could go back into this, pick up some orange, and kind of add that in while it's still wet. I'm going to go back into my red. And it'll kind of spread and change on its own where those two colors meet. So you see it kind of spread out and it does its own thing. So this is wet on wet, which is really pretty. I love it. There's no right or wrong. So these are just different techniques, but you can kind of see how they kind of just, you add that water and it spreads. Or you can put your shape down and let that dry. And then after it's dry, you can come back and add some more color over top of it to make it darker in some areas and lighter in others. So what if you want to have some highlights in there? Then you're going to purposely leave some white areas. And then those can kind of act as highlights. And I just did this as just a quick example. This is more of like a rosette shape. So this one's starting to dry. I could come back and kind of add some darker areas in here. Even come back with a darker shade of red, just like we did last night, to kind of create shadows. And then the brighter orange. So you can see how much stronger that pigment is. So you can change that. This is like really strong, barely any water. And then if we want to keep adding water, it's just going to dilute it down. So you get it very, very soft. So that's all about the amount of water that you have in your brush. So So it's just kind of fun to play with and experiment to get the amount of pigment that you want in there. You can see the ring reflected in the poppies. I'm not seeing that on the screen. Oh, I see. I see what you're talking about now. I see it in a super wet one. Okay, so that's kind of just a crash course in how to play with your watercolors. And now we're going to start just like we did last night. Well, I guess I'm going to be putting one up here because I have a little water up here. However, I'm doing this one a little different. We're not doing the background first. We're doing that last. If I even decide to do it, I may not even add a blue background to this. Now you can still mix on here. Okay, so I've got my orange. I want to pull some red into it. So you're just loading up from your palette and coming over here and mixing. If I want to make it a little darker, I'm just going to grab this like dark burgundy. You can kind of mix that in. So you'll play with it just like you would mixing acrylic paint. It's the same idea. Is it a fuzzy or a cat hair or something right there? Hey, Pauline said you had trouble finding me. So whenever I'm live to the public, it's always on the Social Easel page. And then you just have to refresh it until you see me pop up. Like, I'm already loving how this one's starting to look. Let's do some more orangey ones tonight. Maybe we'll just kind of flip our design, our composition. So for the open poppies, again, you're kind of making like a U or V shape. This one, we're going to have some open in the back as well. So this one's already started to dry. If I want, I can go in and add some orange in here. Let's see if I can make this light a little brighter. Is that light better? So right now, we're just doing some easy little blobs here. Some that are semi-open. All right, how many do I have here? 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. All right, I had 9 in the other one. Do I want to add, let's see. I think I want to add another one kind of drooping down over here. I'm going to go into this more burgundy color, do some darker. So this is wet on wet, so it's just going to kind of take on its own little thing here. Some of these are drier. So with watercolor, it's just kind of fun to just see what happens with it. If I feel like that's too dark, I can come back with more water and just dilute it a little bit more. So just remember, not everything you do is forever. You can come back and make changes. You would never know looking at this now that it's going to turn into poppies. So I'm going to take this darker color, kind of add it up here, because we know that's going to be darker on the inside. Carla said, is there a reason you did not do a background color like you did on the first one? So when you're doing watercolor, you can't just paint the whole background and then paint over top of it, because it's going to alter the color of the flower. So if I painted the whole background blue, that blue is going to show through the reds and the oranges that I paint on there. So tonight, if I decide to do a background, we'll come in and add it later. And I kind of love that look because it leaves some white around the shapes, and it's just a very more organic type of background. Or we may do something similar to what I did in this one and do some more abstract, like paint splatters or something like that. So it just allows you some different options. Let's go to a little bit smaller. So now I'm just going to play with my greens a little bit. Usually when you can kind of tell this from my palette too, I half the time just mix straight on here. Now you can get this really wet and saturated and then take your color over here and then come get the color next to it and add that in. Maybe get some of this lighter green. So you can still mix. I'm just telling you what I do. Half the time I just am collecting like all these greens together to get my colors. So let me decide where I want some of my pods. Let's see. Actually, I want to go ahead and do these first so I know where those are. So I'm going to do my little candy cane. Need a little more water than that. Candy cane little shape going down here. And then I know I want this one coming this way. I'm digging these brushes so far. They are holding their shape really well. And I'm going to be adding more color to these. That's off a little bit. Sorry about that. I think I knocked the camera. So this is just our base color. And then I know I want to add some of these little pods on here. So for this, let's get this pretty wet. Fill in that shape. Let's start another one. Let's have it up here. Just get you a little bit closer for this part. And then I'm going to get some of the lighter green. Get my brush really wet, plenty of water in there. Kind of drop that in, maybe even a little yellow here in a minute. Brenda said, can I use paint pens to make the stems? Yes, you can. Yeah, I'll actually be showing you how to use the Posca pens when we do mixed media tomorrow night. This is a size 2. So I mention this a lot when it's concerning the size of your paintbrush. Every company is different, so I don't really go off numbers. Go with what you're comfortable with and what you can easily make those lines with. If you need a skinnier brush to make skinnier lines, then get a skinnier brush. If you need a bigger one to fill in more, then get a bigger one. So don't get too, focused on the numbers of the brushes because they're all different depending on the brand that you buy. As far as the paints, they don't say what grade they are. They're just watercolor paints. So this is the brand again, and these are in my Amazon store. Okay, so let's kind of continue this over. And remember, our poppy stems are kind of wonky and wobbly and all the things. So don't worry about them being perfectly straight. I purposely like to have them kind of cross over sometimes too. The more you overlap in your paintings, the more depth it's going to give the painting. It's also going to look more realistic because in nature they are going to be overlapping. The thing I love about watercolor too is how each different stroke is going to be completely different, and you'll see some really pigmented areas and then some lighter areas and everything in between. I just think it makes it look so cool. And once you paint a line in the watercolor, you can come back. You probably noticed that earlier when I was doing the poppies and I was kind of doing the wet on wet look. The watercolor will kind of stick to that shape unless there's any wave or anything to your paper. So that is why I have it taped down. So it's a nice flat surface. Hopefully we don't have any wavering in it. Just splattered a little green on there. So it's all about the amount of pressure you put down, kind of like I was showing you yesterday. The same brush can make different brush strokes. So if I'm heavy-handed with this, it's going to make a big, thick line. This brush is holding its shape really well, which is just allowing me, look how skinny I can make that line. I'm just barely dragging that tip across, and you get these super skinny lines. Let's go back. I'm switching to my 1, which is even skinnier, because I want to add a little bit of variation in my stems. So same thing we did yesterday. I'm going to come back. Oh, I love that color. This is like a really dark bluish green. I wish this light is just not, I don't feel like you guys can see the definition very clearly with the way this light is. I don't know if I can get any closer, if it'll make a difference. So I'm getting some darker green and going along the left side of my stems, because I have decided, you can decide whatever you want in your painting, but I've decided my light source is coming from the upper right corner. So that means my shadows are going to be in the lower left corner. Hopefully that's starting to show up. See that darker right there? And keeping in mind that, you know, watercolor is very fluid. If you have some areas that aren't perfectly crisp, that's okay. Again, I think that just kind of adds to the look of watercolor. So I'm going to be going, I'm doing it dark first, and then I'm going to come back and add some yellow in here too. Let's add a little dark in our little pods here. Amber said her hand is broken, so she can't paint along. Okay, so you can hang out and watch with us. The doors to Tribe are only open till Thursday. So if you're kind of debating on whether you want to be a member, they are only open till Thursday. But you can go to my YouTube channel and check out other tutorials there as well. I got a little splatter of green here. Let's see if I can just touch that up. I think I am going to end up splattering this background too. Okay, let's get some yellowish color in here. going to add a little bit more water. So let me show you kind of what I'm doing right now. I'm just loading up the water on that color that I want. And it's going to give a different effect if there's still some wet green on there versus dry green. And then it changes a little bit as it dries as well. But I'm liking the look of the yellow being added in. It also just kind of tones down. Some of these are like super like Kelly green, and I want them more muted than that. So dragging the yellow on top is actually toning that down a little as well. Okay, I'm kind of liking that look. And Clara said, these are so pretty. There are so many ways to make them your own. I'm thinking tiny sizes on flower pots, wooden tray. I've been looking for something to paint on using one of these versions. Yes. And I even, like another idea, you know, Mother's Day is coming up. What if you, you know, did a hand painted Mother's Day card instead of buying one? You can buy watercolor note cards that you can paint on. Amber said, what's your YouTube channel? The Social Easel on all platforms. So if you look up the Social Easel, you're going to find me. I'm going to take that same yellow. Let me pull this over here. I'm going to take that same yellow, pull it over here. So when I add water to that, that's going to mix in with that as well. So I'm getting a little bit of orange in there. Come in and add a little bit of these lighter yellowy orange highlights in here. Maybe a little of this orange, maybe even some of this like more neon color. Let's see what that's like. Oh, I really like that bright one. I love the way this one is coming together. I think more orange than yellow. That yellow kind of dried funny. And then I can still come back. Now we're dry on dry, right? I can come back with a brighter red. Even drag some of that in. So you can do lots of layers here. And each layer is going to create just more dimension. Give the idea of petals. Just adding more water directly to that. Just kind of get a more blended look here. So what about, remember where I dropped that green and I was like, oh, well, I'll have to come back and try to fix that. I can just make my flower bigger and cover that up. So same thing as yesterday. Not everything has to make sense right now on where you're putting these colors or how your brush strokes are. Obviously we're doing, you know, darker along the bottom because of our shadow, but as far as like your actual brush strokes and all of that, that can all just be very random right now. And each one a little bit different. But you can see with each little brush stroke and color that I add, it just kind of changes the dimension of those flowers a little bit. So now I'm going to grab a little bit of black, which again is always the scary color, right? But we know we want some at the base here. Kind of wipe off my extra. I've got a fuzzy. Thought something was dragging there. Maybe a little black in here. A little bit goes a long way, so you don't need a lot. I'm going to get more water on my brush just so that kind of softens in to our other colors a little bit better. That light's shining right on that. Let's see if I can. You'll be able to see that better when that dries. The light is literally right on top of where I just painted. You know what I'm actually going to do? I'm going to get a little of this darker red down here first, then come back with black so it's wet on wet. I just like the look that gives a little bit better. You can come back if you want it more pigmented. This is already wet, so I'm just coming back and adding a little bit more black right at where it meets the stem. So it's a little bit more concentrated there, a little darker. And then just kind of letting it fade in to the flower. So see how that started out super dark. I'm adding more water to dilute it down. And then I'm going to come back and just touch my black in. I want a little bit more red on this one down here. So you can keep changing your mind and making decisions. Same thing I tell you with the other one. Take some pictures, look at your progress, see what you love, see what you think, oh, maybe I could go back and change that a little. So now we're going to go into the centers. So I'm just kind of dabbing down. I'm going to be a little brave here. Get a little bit more water. Maybe not that much. Let it spread out just a little. Now let's say you do something like this and it spreads more than you wanted it to. I'm moving that just so you can kind of see that shape. That glare was right inside of there. You can take a paper towel and soak up the excess and then do it again if you want. For the watercolor, I kind of love this look of it just kind of softly going out to the side like that. Let's add a little bit more dark up here. Amber, you're asking about Facebook ads showing up during the lives. That only happens on the Social Easel page. That does not happen inside the private group. I'm loving these. I do think I want to add one more flower. I kind of want to add one going off the page. I'm sorry you guys are seeing ad. I didn't know that happened during the actual live. I want to add another one up here. And remember, all your flowers don't always have to stay on the canvas. They can go off the page. Okay, Pam's not seeing an ad. Denise hasn't seen an ad. Brenda, I'm not sure why you're seeing ads then if nobody else is. That's a little confusing. From my understanding, there were not any while we were live. I think I like that a little bit better. Well, I do not control the ads or what you guys see. That is Facebook. So I apologize if they are annoying. So I'm just going back in and adding a little more black where I just want a little bit more concentration. If I wanted to, I could also go back with the black and add some little dots outside these poppies. I kind of like the look of them just being the blobs, though. It's a little bit softer type of look. All right, so there's two things we could do right now at this point. We could come back, because I'm pretty happy with how the flowers look. I don't really think that I want to change much in those. Mary, I just didn't decide to put leaves on them. If you want to put leaves on yours, you most definitely can. You can do the background blue and kind of put like a fade around it. I can show you probably on my mixed media pad, or we can do some fun splatter art. So let me know which ones you think we should do on this. Should we do some splatter and make it completely different than our acrylic version last night? Or should I add some blue in that background? So, funny story about this, or interesting story, not really funny. The original idea for this Poppies painting came from a 3D piece of art that I made in my 3D design class in college several years ago, after I went back to school, after I had Sophie. And I took an old cabinet door, I roughed it up and stained it brown, and then I made 3D poppies out of clay. And this was the design that I did on that old cabinet door. And so then when I started painting and teaching paint parties, I decided to take that design and turn it into a painting. And that's how you got the painting that you have here in front of you today. I'm just seeing some things I want to change down in here. This pot, I don't like the way that yellow dried, so I'm just going to go over top of that a little. It looks like splatter is the overwhelming choice. So let me do this. Let me show you what I would do if I was doing the blue background. I would get a big fat brush. I'm going to do this carefully so I don't get this color on my other. I would get a little bit of blue, teal, whatever you want here. I don't want my background to be super potent. So I want it very, very watered down. So I'm adding a whole bunch of water to this. And then you would simply just kind of come around and put like a wash around it. And then just let it dry. Can add some different colors in there if you want. So it's just a very soft kind of background. So that would be if you want to add color to the background. So let's do some splatter. I am going to do, I think, red. You could do red or green or blue, kind of whatever you want. We're just going to play with it. I think I may actually start with kind of an orangish red color. So I'm getting a whole bunch of water in there, and I'm going to hold my finger and tap it. Now, if you want some bigger splatters, you could get a little bit bigger brush. It's going to leave more of a more droplets behind there. I'm going to pick up a little bit of red with this one. Let's add a little bit more water to that. Now this does make a mess on your whole painting area, so just be ready for that. I think I might even want to put a little bit of the green color down here. Let's splatter a little bit of green on here. Now with splatter, you have to be okay with kind of whatever happens, happens. I'm going to do just a tiny bit of black even. So you could go much more minimal than that. You could add a bunch. You could make it more concentrated down low. So there's lots of different ways you can do that. So now this is one of my favorite parts of painting watercolor, or really anything, or mixed media. If I did this in acrylic too, is taking off the border and just seeing that white edge. So we're going to do that next. But what do you guys think? Do you like this one? Did you like this version? Or let me pull this one over here. See if we can zoom out a little. Here's our watercolor. And our acrylic from last night. That gives you a good overview. I like them both, but there's something I love about just the white background and the vibrant red poppies that are on top of it. All right, let's do some peeling here. So while I'm doing this, we're just going to answer any questions you guys have about Tribe. If you're interested in becoming a Tribe sister, let me know what questions you have about that, and we will answer those for you. So just to kind of give you a little insight inside of what Tribe is it's a private community in a Facebook group. We are a positive vibes only group. No negativity allowed, no complaining, no putting others down, all that kind of stuff. So it's just a positive, safe place for you to go to learn how to paint with other ladies that are also learning how to paint. And we have women from every aspect of painting. So whether you are a newbie or you've been painting for years, we have women from every area and in between. You guys are asking about the tape. So this is new tape that I just got. It's just called artist tape. And to be honest with you, it actually pulled a little on this bottom edge. So that was a little disappointing. I've used masking tape in the past. I was just trying this to see if I thought it was better. So not super thrilled about that. I've used duct tape or the blue painting tape that you use in your house when you're painting. That works as well. So I don't really think you have to have a specific kind. Oh, that's a good idea. Tammy said, I love both. I can't wait to do the next two. I'm going to do a set for my mom for Mother's Day. That is a fantastic idea. I'm going to pull your comment up because this is a really, really good idea for you guys to do as gifts. I love that. Lisa said, why did you use the tape? One, to adhere this to a surface. One, so it doesn't move, so it doesn't warp, anything like that. And also just to create a crisp edge. So you could get a 9x12 frame now and frame this, and it's got a nice clean edge. It just kind of gives a little bit more of a finished look to the painting by putting a little border around it.